Have you ever looked at your bank account, your payslip, and your credit card debt and thought, the math is not mathing? Have you ever thought, if only I earned 2, 3, maybe 5 times more, all my financial problems will be solved, right? Wrong. And this video will be a very personal one, because I never shared this with anyone except for my husband, even with my friends. And I will share today with you how I managed to grow my income 3x and at the same time grow my credit card debt 30x, and what it took to turn my finances around and finally start saving. For years, I've been living from paycheck to paycheck, and actually even worse, I was living from deadline to repay my credit card debt. For years, I've been terrible with money. I felt that there's all my life in front of me. It's too early to start bothering myself with saving or investing. I have plenty of time. I'm only like 25, 24. And actually it turned out to be a total disaster at some point. For my age and for the country where I lived, I had an exceptionally high income. I will tell you in this video exact figures, by the way. But yet I was broke. So if you thought that making 6 figures will automatically make you wealthy, chances are that you are wrong. Because there are two sides of this equation. First, how much you earn, and second, how much you spend. And if you don't manage properly both sides of this equation, you won't be able to build your wealth. If you're new here, hi, I'm Katia and I'm a global strategy manager in a large CPG corporation. I'm also an ex-management consultant. And last but not least, I'm a 6-figure earner who wasted 10 years of her life before she finally managed to build rewarding relationships with money, only at the age of 33. And I know for a fact that I'm not an exception. There are many high earners out there who cannot manage their finances properly. According to a report called New Reality Check, almost half of people in the US earning more than 100K live paycheck to paycheck. And this is data for January 2024. And for people earning more than 200K, this number is 36%. So let's dive into this video. Firstly, I will briefly share my personal background and the evolution of my income during 5 years period. So from 2014 until 2019. I will show you the real numbers of my income, taxes that I paid, and my credit card debt. Then I will share what exactly helped me to exit this vicious cycle of overspending and lifestyle creep, basically. And finally, I will tell you what I do differently today, which allows me to save and invest 60% of my income without dropping my quality of life. So let's start with my brief background. I was born and raised in Russia in the 90s. It was right after the Soviet Union fell and crazy times started. Some people got extremely rich overnight, and some people just lost everything they had. Both of my parents were public sector workers and they had pretty much nothing when I was born, so we did not even own an apartment or house or anything. Moving further into my childhood and into my teenage years, my parents managed to grow their income and they even were able to buy an apartment for us. The economic situation in my country was so unstable when I grew up, and the local currency dropped so many times, like dramatically, that it was more common and more practical to convert money into real goods right after you receive them. The whole concept of saving and investing and building wealth was foreign to the entire nation, including my family, which turned into my close to zero financial literacy. Ironically enough, I later went to the University of Economics and Finance to do my bachelor's degree. And spoiler alert, it really did not help me much with my personal finance. At some point, I decided that I would love to continue my education abroad, but obviously I had no money to pay for it. So I was aiming for full scholarships or programs with full scholarships or programs with no tuition fees. And after years of preparation and applying to multiple universities and business schools, I was accepted to Bocconi University, which gave me a very generous scholarship, and they also funded my double degree program with the Copenhagen Business School. So with these 2 diplomas, I entered the job market back in 2014. I didn't find an employment in Europe, so I went back to Russia and I joined a multinational CPG firm on a leadership development program for graduates. And this was the beginning of a 5-year journey when my salary went up exponentially. My starting annual salary was about $49,000 if I convert local currency to dollars. And then it went up by 10% more or less each year. And when I finished this 3-year graduate leadership program, I became a brand manager. It was in 2017. And my annual salary back then was $65,000. In the second half of 2017, I changed the industry and I changed the company. So I joined McKinsey and I became a management consultant there. Overnight, my income grew by 74%, and then a year later I got promoted and it went up by 25% as well. So overall, in 5 years, my income, my salary went up by 200%, so 3x. And when I was in management consulting in 2019, my annual gross salary was around $140,000 per year. And to put this figure into perspective, I want to show you 3 numbers. And this will be mind-blowing, I promise you. So in Russia, we had a fixed income tax of 13%. It doesn't matter how much you earn, 13% is your tax. So my net income, which means after tax, was 123,000 K. So if we were to estimate the equivalent of this sum in New York, based on the purchasing power by Numbeo.com, it would be $437K. And last but not least, just for your understanding, the average annual net salary in Moscow in 2019 was $14.4K. So I was not just in top 1% of earners in Moscow back then, I was in 0.1% of earners. On top of that, most of my meals and taxi rides were covered by the company, so I didn't have to pay anything for that. And last but not least, I didn't have any student loan to repay because I was granted a full scholarship back then when I studied in my master's. Yet, by the end of 2019, I had 0 savings, I had a credit card debt of 10K, and also when I was signing my resignation later in 2020, I had to give back my company 4K because I overused the vacation days, the PTO days. So basically you get the picture of how ridiculous the situation was. And how did I ended up in this situation? Honestly, I have 0 idea. When I reflect back on these 5 years of my life, I can see 3 reasons why it happened. And the first one would be the famous lifestyle creep. So what is it? If I ask the ChatGPT, it will tell me the following. Lifestyle creep, also known as lifestyle inflation, refers to the phenomenon where an individual's discretionary spending increases as their income rises. Well, this is exactly what happened with me. This pattern often occurs gradually and can lead to a situation where, despite earning more money, the person does not achieve a significant improvement in their savings or investments. Well, I can't say that my spending gradually increased. It just skyrocketed overnight, to be honest. And as I am not a huge fan of luxury shopping, and you will hardly ever find me in a Dior store buying a t-shirt, I treated myself with all the possible exclusive experiences you can ever imagine. Things that I could never afford when I was growing up, overnight became available to me. Last-minute tickets from Moscow to Bali for New Year? Yeah, of course, I'm in. A spa treatment in a luxury hotel? Well, I worked so hard and I think that I have to treat myself with this because I need to relax. For some reason, I built my spending habits based on several assumptions. I'm still very young and there is still plenty of time for me to build my wealth. There is no urgency to start right now. Yeah, so basically when I first started my serious full-time job at 24, I thought that savings, investments, this is something for, 30-something people. Second, well, it's actually exactly the time, like the best time in my life when I can explore the world and enjoy a lot of various experiences that I would be not enjoying in 20 or 30 years. And the third assumption that I had is that I would be able to sustain the same level of income, if not growing it, because my previous experience told me that I would grow it for the rest of my life. My previous experience of growing my salary gave me overconfidence that things will get even better in the future, so I don't need to worry about future at all. And this is exactly why I ended up with a credit card debt, because I was so sure that the future will bring me only more money that I will be able to repay it very easily. I believe that the third reason of my overspending habits was the fact that I was very stressed at my job and I worked too hard. I worked long hours, and this was kind of an overcompensation for this hard work. Most of the time I was working 70, 80 plus hours per week in consulting, in management consulting in Moscow, and I didn't have enough time and enough energy to think about money, and I didn't have a feeling that I need to think about money because I do have enough. My overspending was a compensation for the hard work that I put into building my career. So I thought that, okay, this is the time to treat myself because I've put so much energy and effort and time into preparing for university, into preparing to get accepted to the most prestigious and the most competitive management consulting firm. I had this feeling that I kind of earned it and I have a full right to spend it on whatever I want. So what made me to change my spending habits? In 2019, almost overnight, my income fell to zero. And here is what happened. In early 2019, I got married. I got married to my colleague, ex-colleague from management consulting, and we both got transferred to the Paris office. So we went to live to France. And I did understand that our purchasing power will decrease dramatically because this is kind of obvious. Our management consulting salary was fixed in euros and it was more or less the same in Moscow and in Paris back then. But when you compare Moscow to Paris, you see basically two things. First, you need to calculate for higher taxes. So for our level of income in 2019, it was 40-50% in Paris versus 13% in Moscow. And second, you need to take into account the falling purchasing power. And when I go to Numbeo, and this is exactly, by the way, what I did back then, 5 years ago. So we checked how prices looked like in Moscow versus Paris. And here is what we found. Not only my purchasing power was supposed to decline 4 times after I moved to Paris, it actually went to zero because I had to stop working for some time. What happened is that my French work permit was delayed by 7 months. And during this period of time, I could not legally work. The only thing I could do would be just sitting and waiting for the decision of French authorities. This was the time when I decided to quit my job and to start my own business. Being an entrepreneur completely changed my mindset. Although after 3 years of entrepreneurship, I closed my company and I eventually went back to the corporate world, this entrepreneurship experience altered my relationships with money and the way I think about my finances. When you are an entrepreneur, you put all your time, efforts, resources into something that has a probability to grow your income exponentially in the future. This probability is pretty low. According to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, over the course of 10 years, around 65% of businesses fail. But that's the deal. X hours of your life for a small chance of building a future wealth. When you are a corporate employee, you're essentially trading your time. Okay, not only time, but also your experience, your expertise, your brain power, your energy for money right now in this moment. And okay, you're trading it not only for money, but also for an opportunity to gain the further experience, further expertise, opportunities to grow and build your skills and so on. But you essentially get the point. Your time, money that you get. There is no more opportunity to build like an exponential wealth as you can build in entrepreneurship. And I have to say that I'm very happy with my current job. I am still high income, I earn 6 figures, and by the way, if you are interested in how I landed a 6-figure job offer in Paris with no French, please follow the link, it should be here or here, to see how I did it, because I filmed a separate video on this topic. And although I'm very happy, I know for sure that I'm trading this amount of my time, my life basically, for this amount of euros. And if I spend these euros away, there is nothing left for me anymore, because everything that I produce actually in my work belongs to my company. So I'm left with nothing and there is no chance for me building wealth in the future. So I can't afford to spend them all. Otherwise, all those long corporate hours would be for nothing. And we don't want that, right? So what do I do now? I invest more than 60% of my take-home income. Take-home meaning after tax. I do it in 3 ways. First, what I do is I use the tax-advantageous saving options that my company has to offer. How does it work? I have a certain percent of my salary that instead of withdrawing and taking home, I can put on a separate saving account where I can choose to invest it in 5 different funds with different risk profiles. And this money are locked for at least 5 years. There are special cases where you can unlock them. So, for example, if you give birth to a 3rd child or you're buying your primary residence, most of those cases are not applicable for me, so I believe that my money will stay there for 5 years at least. Oh, there is my dog barking. I hope he will stop now. I'll try to take him with me. Okay, so I hope we will continue like this. The coolest part is that after 5 years, you can withdraw this money and take them home without income tax. And income tax in France is just huge, so it gives you a high leverage for saving and investing. In France, this option is called PEE. You can check what options do you have in your home country. But what really helps me is the fact that I basically never see this money because they don't land on my bank account. They go straight away to a separate savings account, and it feels as if I never had them. So it's not something in the consideration set for me to spend them. So what else did I do? My husband and I, at some point, we converted some of our OPEX, operational expenses, into CAPEX, so like capital expenditures. I'm talking about a mortgage right now. So in 2021, we managed to buy an apartment and secure a 1% interest rate for our mortgage. And given the fact that in Paris, on average, prices grow every year from 3 to 5%, in some areas even higher, basically we consider our mortgage to be an investment in the long run, and we don't need to spend on rest on top of that. I know that it's not the case like in every geography, in every city, but once the rates go down, and I hope they will, this is something worth considering as well. And last but not least, I put some money aside each month to invest them into ETFs. And in order to do that, I also use some tax advantageous accounts. In France, it's PEA, but, no, all fine. Zephyr, how are you? All good? Yeah. So in France, it's PEA. In other countries, it could be called differently. This is what I do as well, because I want to invest some of my money separately from that first saving account that I was talking about. So overall, from my own experience, I have to say that the most important thing is not the exact percent of your income that you save in and invest each month, but it is the habit that you need to build in order to do it on a regular basis, basically each time you get paid. And I will finish this video by sharing with you some of the feelings that I had during this journey and I have now. First of all, I truly regret that I wasted 10 years before I started to invest. Compound effect, compound percent is a very powerful thing, and the only thing that matters, not the only, of course, the amount that you invested matters, but what actually matters is the time horizon. So the more time you have for investing, the more money you will get. And 10 years is a pretty considerable time period. Something which was counterintuitive for me as well is that now that I don't spend all the money that I get from my job and I invest a considerable part of it, I feel more satisfaction with my job itself. This is something that I understand that this employment is something which helps me to build my wealth in the future, helps me to build my future basically, and to make steps towards financial independence. So I'm way more satisfied with my current employment. And last one, when I was planning all those investments, one of the things that I really wanted to do for myself is to create a system that will give me the feeling that I'm not like limiting myself in every situation in life. Basically, I identified some areas which are the most important for me, where I want to treat myself. And one of those areas years is sports. I do spend way more on sports, on different sports classes than I can spend actually, because I really enjoy doing it. I'm a huge fan of Pilates Reformer and Lagray, and I really enjoy going to these cool sports classes to like hang out with nice people and to feel those good vibes. I also really like my private Pilates classes, and this is something with which I treat myself. And given the fact that I get so much like energy and inspiration and like positive emotions out of that, I deliberately decided to invest more money in this field of my life. By the way, do you want me to make a video on how much do I spend in a month in Paris? Let me know in the comments below. So guys, thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing, and please let me know in the comments below if you want to learn more about my financial journey. I'm still in the very beginning of this journey. I started only a year ago, less than a year ago, but I already managed to progress well, so I'll be happy to share my experience with you guys. Have a great day, and thanks one more time for watching this video.